Hello everyone, hope you had a good day. Welcome back. So a couple things I want to go over before we continue the story from yesterday. First off, we will be continuing our story, Terry Pratchett's Equal Rights. We left off on page 8 yesterday. We'll be going on from there. A couple things I want to cover. First off, I've changed the name to the channel. It was TheReader, which I enjoyed, but it was also just really kind of plain. There's a bunch of channels that seem to be a lot like it. So it's now been changed to Fables N Fury. Fables for stories, and Fury because Nick Fury. Nice to see you. I hope that will, help out with you being able to find the channel. I mean, you're watching a video, so whatever. But you explain it maybe to your friends or your family or what have you. Second, with Terry Pratchett's work specifically, with books like these, especially in Discworld series, I realized that there are bits in the story, right? Like, there are bits in the stories where one scene will end and then we'll cut to like a different place. And it's a little bit difficult to express on its own. So I think I'm going to make up a sound when that happens, just so you don't get confused about, where we are. And I think it sounds going to be simple, like something like that, And so right now, that's that. That's the recap. We're good. Let's go back to where we were before and get this reading underway. So, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, where we were last, we were on page 8. And what we know so far is that there's about to be a new female wizard in the world of the Discworld. We do not know her name yet, I don't believe. So let's go back to the town of Badass, where a midwife is holding a brand new baby, and the wizard has passed on his staff. The midwife's name was Granny Weatherwax. She was a witch, and that was perfectly acceptable in the Ramtops, and no one had a bad word to say about witches. At least, not if they wanted to wake up in the morning in the same shape as they went to bed. The smith was still staring gloomily at the rain when she came back down the stairs and clapped a warty hand on his shoulder. He looked up at her. "What shall I do, Granny?" he said, unable to keep the pleading out of his voice. "What have you done with the wizard?" she asked. "I put him out in the fuel store." "Was that right?" "It'll do for now," he said briskly. "And now you must burn the staff." They both turned to stare at the heavy staff, which the smith had propped in the forge's darkest corner. It almost appeared to be looking back at them. "But it's magical," he whispered. "Well, will it burn? Never knew wood that didn't. It doesn't seem right." Granny Weatherwax swung shut the big doors and turned to him angrily. "Now you listen to me, Gordo Smith," she said. "Female wizards aren't right either. It's the wrong kind of magic for a woman. It's wizard magic. It's all books and stars and geometry. She'd never grasp it. Who ever heard of a female wizard?" "There's witches," said the smith uncertainly. "And enchantresses too, I hear." "Witches is an entirely different thing," snapped Granny Weatherwax. "It's magic out of the ground, not out of the sky, and men could never get the hang of it. As for enchantresses," she added, "they're no better than they should be. You take it from me. Just burn the staff, bury the body, and don't let it on that it ever happened." Smith nodded reluctantly, crossed over to the forge, pumped the bells until the sparks flew. He went back for the staff. It wouldn't move. "It won't move!" Sweat stood out of his brow as he tugged at the wood. It remained uncooperatively immobile. "Here, let me try," said Granny, and reached past him. There was a snap and the smell of scorched tin. Smith ran across the forge, whimpering slightly, to where Granny had landed upside down against the opposite wall. "Are you all right?" said the smith. She opened 2 eyes like angry diamonds and said, "I see. That's the way of it, is it?" "The way of what?" said the smith, totally bewildered. "Help me up, you fool, and fetch me a chopper." The tone of her voice suggested it be a very good idea not to disobey. Smith rummaged desperately among the junk at the back of the forge until he found an old double-headed axe. Right. Now take off your apron. Why? What do you intend to do? Said the smith, who was beginning to lose his grip on events. Granny gave an exasperated sigh. It's leather, you idiot. I'm going to wrap it around the handle. He'll not catch me the same way twice. Smith struggled out of the leather apron and handed it to her very gingerly. She wrapped it around the axe and made one or two passes in the air. Then, a spider-like figure in the glow of nearly incandescent furnace, she stalked across the room with a grunt of triumph and effort, brought the heavy blade swooping right down to the center of the staff. There was a click. There was a noise like a partridge. There was a thud. There was silence. Smith reached up very slowly, without moving his head, and touched the axe blade. It wasn't on the axe anymore. It had buried itself in the door right by his head, taking a tiny nick out of his ear. Granny stood looking slightly blurred from hitting an absolutely immovable object, and stared at the stub of wood in her hands. Right, she said. In that case... No, said Smith firmly, rubbing his ear. Whatever it is you're going to suggest, no. Leave it. I'll pile some stuff around it. No one will notice. Leave it. It's just a stick. Just a stick? Have you got better ideas? One that won't take my head off? She glared at the staff, which appeared not to notice. Not right now, she admitted. But you just give me time. All right. Anyway, I've got things to do. Wizards to bury, you know how it is, said the smith. Smith took a spade from beside the back door and hesitated. Granny? What? Do you know how wizards like to be buried? Yes. Well, how? Granny Weatherwax paused at the bottom of the stairs. Reluctantly. Later, night fell gently as the last of the world's slow light flowed out of the valley, and a pale, rain-washed moon shone down in a night studded with stars. In the shadowy orchard, behind the forge, there was an occasional clink of a spade or a muffled curse. In the cradle upstairs, the world's first female wizard dreamed of nothing much. The white cat lay half asleep in his private ledge near the furnace. The only sound in the warm, dark forge was the crackle of the coals as it settled down under the ash. The staff stood in the corner, where it wanted to be, wrapped in shadows that were slightly blacker than shadows normally are. Time passed, which, basically, is its job. There was a faint tickle and a swish of air. After a while, the cat sat up and watched with interest. Dawn came. Up here in the ram tops, dawn always was impressive, especially when a storm would clear the air. The valley occupied by Bad Ass overlooked a panorama of lesser mountains and foothills, colored purple and orange in the early morning light. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there. Colored purple and orange in the early morning light that flowed gently over them, because light travels at a different pace in Discworld. You've got a magical field. Not important. And far off in the Great Plains was still a puddle of shadows. Even further off, the sea gave an occasional distant sparkle. In fact, from here you could see right to the edge of the world. This was not poetic imagery, but plain fact, since the world was quite definitely flat on Discworld, and was furthermore known to be carried through space on the backs of 4 giant elephants that in turn stood on the shell of Great Atuin, the great sky turtle. Back down here in Bad Ass, the village was waking up. The smith had just gone to the forge and found it tidier than it had been for the last 100 years, with all the tools back in the right place, the floor swept, a new fire laid in the furnace. He is sitting on the anvil, which has been moved right across the room, and is watching the staff, and is trying to think. Now, you know what? I want to pause here. I'm not entirely sure why I want to pause here. But real quick, can we just talk about how cool it is that there is a world out there that sits on the back of four giant elephants that stand on the back of the great turtle? Now, what you don't know, and probably won't know in this book, is that this turtle is 10,000 miles long. Big. In fact, that's the Discworld. Turtle's even bigger than that. So picture that. Turtle, elephants, the Great Disc, and waterfalls spiraling up endlessly in space. Really cool stuff. Anyway, let's get back to it. Nothing much happened for 7 years, except that one of the apple trees in the smithy orchard grew perceptibly taller than the others, and was frequently climbed by a small girl with brown hair, a gap in her front teeth, and the sort of features that promise to become, if not beautiful, then at least actively interesting. She was named Escarina, for no particular reason other than the fact that her mother liked the sound of the word, and although Granny Weatherwax kept a careful watch on her, she failed to spot any signs of magic whatsoever. It was true that the girls spent more time climbing trees and running around shouting than little girls normally did, but a girl with 4 older brothers still at home can be excused a lot of things. In fact, the witch began to relax and started to think that the magic had not taken hold at all. But magic is a habit of lying low, like a rake in the grass. Winter came around again, and it was a bad one. The clouds hung around the round tops like big, fat sheep, filling the gullies with snow and turning the forest into silent, gloomy caverns. The high passes were closed, and the caravans wouldn't come again until spring. Bad Ass became a little island of heat and light. Over breakfast, X's mother said, "I'm worried about Granny Weatherwax. She hasn't been around lately." Smith looked over at her from his porridge. "I'm not complaining. She's got a long nose," said Esk. Her parents glared at her. There's no call to make that kind of remark," said her mother sternly. "But father said she's always poking her nose in Escarina." "But he said," I said, "yes, but he did say that." Smith reached down and slapped her. It wasn't very hard, and he regretted it instantly. The boys got the flat of his hand and occasionally the length of his belt whenever they deserved it. The trouble with his daughter, though, was not ordinary naughtiness, but the infuriating way that she had relentlessly pursuing the thread of an argument long after she should have put it down. It always flustered him. She burst into tears. Smith stood up, angry, and embarrassed himself, and stumped off to the forge. There was a loud crack and a thud. They found him out cold on the floor. Afterward, he always maintained that he hid his head in the doorway, which was odd, because he wasn't very tall and there had always been plenty of room before. But he was certain that whatever had happened had nothing to do with a blur of moment from the forge's darkest corner. Somehow the event set the seal on the day. It became a broken crockery day, a day of people getting under each other's feet and being peevish. Esk's mother dropped a jug that had belonged to her grandmother, and a whole box of apples in the loft turned out to be moldy. In the forge, the furnace went sullen and refused to be drawn. James, the oldest son, slipped on a pack ice in the road and hurt his arm. The white cat, or possibly one of his descendants, since cats lead a private life and complicated in their own right, went up and climbed in the chimney and refused to come down. Even the sky pressed in like an old mattress, and the air felt stuffy, despite the snow. Frayed nerves and boredom had a bad temper, made the air hum like a thunderstorm weather. Jesus, that was terrible. I apologize. Let's do it again. Frayed nerves and boredom and bad temper made the air hum like thunderstorm weather. Very sorry. "Right, that's it. That's just about enough," shouts S's mother. "Cern, you and Galton S can go and see how Granny is." "Where's S?" The 2 youngest boys looked up from where they were half-heartedly fighting under the table. "She went out to the orchard," said Galton. "Again." Go and fetch her then, and bring her in, and be off. But it's cold, and it's going to snow again, said the boys. It's only a mile, and the road is clear enough, and who was so keen to be out in it when we had the first snowfall? Go on with you, and don't come back until you're in a better temper. They found S sitting in a fork by the big apple tree, in a fork of the big apple tree. The boys didn't like the tree much. For one thing, it was so covered in mistletoe that it looked green even in midwinter. Its fruit was small, and went from stomach-twisting sourness to wasp-filled rottenness overnight. And although it looked easy enough to climb, it had a habit of breaking twigs and dislodging feet at inconvenient moments. Cern once swore that a branch had twisted just to spill him off, but it tolerated Ask, who used to go and sit in it as if she was annoyed or fed up or just wanted to be up on her own. And the boys sensed every brother's right to gently torture his sister ended at the foot of the tree's trunk. So they threw a snowball at her. It missed. We're going to go see old Granny Weatherwax. But you don't have to come, said the boys. Because it'll just slow us down and probably cry anyway. Esk looked down at them solemnly. She didn't cry a lot. Never seemed to achieve much. If you don't want me to come, then I'll come, she said. This is the sort of thing that passes for logic among siblings. Oh, we want you to come, said Gulta quickly. Very pleased to hear it, said Esk, dropping onto the packed snow. They had a basket containing smoked sausages, preserved eggs, and, because their mother was prudent as well as generous, a large jar of peach preserve that no one in the family liked very much. She still made it every year when the little wild peaches were ripe anyway. The people of Bad Ass had learned to live in the long winter snows, and the roads out of the village were lined with boards to reduce drifting, and more importantly, to stop travelers from straying. If they lived locally, it wouldn't matter too much if they did, because an unsung genius in the village council, several generations previously ago, had come up with the idea of carving markers in every 10th tree in the forest around the village, out to a distance of nearly 2 miles. It had taken ages, and recutting markers was always a job for any man with spare time. But in winters, where a blizzard could lose a man within yards of his home, many a life had been saved by the pattern of notches found by probing fingers under the clinging snow. It was snowing again when they left the road and started up the track where, in the summer, the witch's house nestled in the riot of raspberry thickets and weird witch growth. No footprints, said Cern, except for foxes. They say that she can turn herself into a fox, or anything, a bird even, anything. That's how she always knows what's going on. They looked around cautiously. A scruffy crow was indeed watching them from a distant tree stump. They say there's a whole family over Crack Peak way that can turn themselves into wolves, said Gulta, who wasn't one to leave a promising subject. Because one night, someone shot a wolf, and next day their auntie was limping with an arrow in her leg, and I don't think people can turn themselves into animals, said Esk slowly. Oh yes, Miss Clever, said one of the boys. Granny's quite big. If she turned herself into a fox, what would happen to all the bits that wouldn't fit? She just magic them away, said Cern. I don't think magic works like that, said Esk. You can't just make things happen. There's a sort of, like a seesaw thing. If you push one end down, the other one goes up. Her voice trailed off as she was thinking. I can't see Granny on a seesaw, said Gulta. Cern giggled. No, I mean, every time something happens, something else has happened too, I think, said Esk uncertainly, picking her way around a deeper than usual snowdrift. Only in the opposite direction? That's silly, said Gulta. Because, look, you remember when that fair came last year and there was a wizard with it and he made all those birds and things appear out of nothing? I mean, it just happened. He just said these words and waved his hands and it just happened. There weren't any seesaws. There was a swing, said Cern, and a thing where you had to throw things and other things in order to win things. And you didn't hit anything, Gull. Nor did you. You said that things were stuck to the things so you couldn't knock them off. You said. The conversation wandered away like a couple of puppies. Esk listened with half an ear. I know what I mean, she told herself. Magic's easy. You just find a place where everything's balanced and push. Anyone could do it. There's something magical about it. All the funny words and wavings of hands is just, it's only for. She stopped, surprised herself. She knew what she meant. The idea was right up there in the front of her mind, but she didn't know how to say it in words, even to herself. It's a horrible feeling to find things in your head and not know how they fitted. It's, come on, we'll be all day, said the boys. She shook her head and hurried after her brothers. The witch's cottage consisted of so many extensions and lean-tos that it was difficult to see what the original building had looked like, or even if there ever had been one. In the summer, it was surrounded by dense beds where Granny loosely called the herbs was. So, this is a book by a British author. I think it's only fair. Herbs is spelled Herbs. Yes. In America, we do it right and just say herbs. But in British, because they're sticklers and they're weird, they pronounce the H. Herbs here, herbs there. Fun little fact about a word that we both share. Aren't words fun? Let's get back to it. Herbs. Strange plants, hairy or squat or twining, with curious flowers or vivid fruits or unpleasantly bulging pods. Only Granny knew what they were all for, and any wood pigeon hungry enough to attack them generally emerged itself giggling and bumping into things. Or sometimes, never emerged at all. Now everything was under the deep snow. A forlorn windsock, which I have no idea what that is, flapped against its pole. Granny didn't hold with flying. Some of her friends still used broomsticks. It looks deserted, said Gulta. No smoke, said Cern. The windows looked like eyes, thought Esk, but kept it to herself. It's only Granny's house, she said. There's nothing wrong. The cottage radiated emptiness. They could feel it. The windows did look like eyes, black and menacing against the snow, and no one in the ram tops let the fire out in the winter, as a matter of pride. Esk wanted to say, let's go home, but she knew that if she did, the boys would run for it. Instead, she said, Mother says there's a key underneath the privy, and a nail on the privy. So sorry. Mother says there's a key on a nail in the privy. By the way, for people who do not know, privy is another name for wash closet, or bathroom, or restroom. In this particular case, it's an outhouse set away from a normal house like they do back in the olden days, which really is a shed with a hole in it. So you know. And that was nearly as bad. Even an ordinary unknown privy held minor terrors like wasp nests, large spiders, mysterious rustlings and things in the roof, and, one very bad winter, a small hibernating bear that caused acute constipation in the family until it was persuaded to bed down in the hay barn. A witch's privy could contain anything. I'll go and look, shall I? She added. If you like, Cultus airily said, almost successfully concealing his relief. And for now, I suppose that's where we'll stop. It's been about 23 minutes. And it's getting late. So everyone, thank you for coming back, and we will continue here on page 18 tomorrow, and we will see what we find with the boys and our dear girl Esk when they walk into the cottage. Good night, everybody. Good night, America. Don't forget I love you. I feel like I should have a catchphrase or something, right? Like Nick Fury out? Whatever. Love you, and good night.